Welcome to episode 2 of the Pick a Side podcast, everybody. This is Wilder Adams alongside John Tortorelli and River Brown. I can't pronounce your name now all of a sudden, man. He abandoned us our first episode, so now I don't even know his name anymore. River, how are you doing, man?
I'm feeling great. Happy to be here. Excited to talk ball with you guys. You know, a Minnesota Timberwolves fan and a all around the world fan. So excited to, talk some hoops and get into this conversation, man.
Absolutely. Today I'm excited, man. We have a little film breakdown for you guys.
Why do you have an Adidas shirt on?
Oh, why not? I thought it looked great this morning, personally. And
Okay.
I have one too.
Are you guys signed by
Believe
Adidas?
that.
Is that what it is? Are you Adidas signs? Is that what's going on?
They should sign me, but maybe after this breakdown, they'll really be inclined to. Today we're breaking down two players that I think we're all huge fans of, Chet Holmgren and Evan Mobley at the end of the episode. We're also going to have some contract extension reactions, kind of grading those. And then lastly, we're going to sift through week 1 of the NBA, the first 2 games roughly. Some teams have only played 1. And I just couldn't be more excited to be here. But first off, I want to cover the Thunder, who took care of the Nuggets pretty swiftly. Denver only scored 87 points. And we're going to break down a little bit of how they're able to defend Denver with some of their new additions in the starting lineup. I'm going to be honest, I'm worried about the Nuggets because this team has a floor spacing problem.
Worried about them in the playoffs or regular season?
Both. I think the answer to that question would be now, because they have to figure out a lot of things in their starting lineup with 2 non-floor spacers. And then in the playoffs specifically, I look at guys like Russell Westbrook and Peyton Watson, who may be able to really contribute for 82 games, but then once they're coming off the bench in those tight playoff series, how they're able to play alongside Aaron Gordon. So that's really my concern, I think, altogether.
Are we Julian Strawther believers?
Yes.
I am, strongly.
He needs to show up, man. He needs to show up. Denver among like the top teams in the West, they might be the only team that doesn't have one player who can both shoot and defend at a B+ level. So I think Julian Strawther needs to be that guy. So we'll see if he can show up a little bit this year.
Absolutely. So we're going to break down first how the Thunder are able to defend Denver. And first off, Christian Braun, he's a pretty efficient shooter, but I think we've seen the last couple of years, a lot of teams aren't looking to defend him. And specifically here, you've got Shai just sitting at the top of the foul line, and they're able to draw a foul on Nikola Jokic, but this was something that was present the entire first game, where you've got 4 defenders all at the front of the paint. And when you're defending Nikola Jokic that way and he doesn't have a strong enough kick-out option, it just changes the entire dynamic of what made the Nuggets a contender in the first place. It was having 3 guys who could space the floor at a high level, and then Aaron Gordon in the dunker spot. But I feel like right now we're seeing with 2 non-floor spacers be able to double-team Jokic. He doesn't have the same amount of options. And then lastly, I just think altogether it hurts the flow and the off-ball movement. You've got guys standing still. And I think that's just a huge issue because, like you said, there's not many two-way players in this Denver offense. Guys that are efficient floor spacers, like you have to close out on them. And then on the defensive end, they're going to be able to consistently defend. And that was what they missed most, I think, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Yo, can you play that clip one more time?
Of course.
Yeah, just play this one more time.
Look at Christian Braun.
First of all, you make that pass 10 times out of 10. I respect the Joker's game. One of the best passers in the world. You got to trust your teammates to some degree. You know, Christian Braun sitting in the corner. The corner is the easiest 3-point shot to make. SGAs are playing a little bit too much help, and I get it. As we just seen in that clip, Chet cannot guard the Joker. You know, they went 1-on-1. Boom, a little half spin to the rim. It was easy. It was light for him. So I get sending 4 at the ball. But I'm with you, John. I don't think this is going to be here's my takeaway from the game. A lot of teams can't do what OKC did to Denver. Like we can overreact to them whipping their ass, and OKC is one of the best, probably the best team in the West. It's probably the second best team in the league. And what they did to them just kind of showed that that's a matchup they may not be prepared for because of the lack of shooting. You know, we'll see how the season plays on. But my thing is, I don't think a lot of teams can do that to Denver. I don't think a lot of teams, I think they'll be able to overcome that in the regular season of just not having the shooting and the lack of spacing. But the Joker said in his post game, like outside of, I forgot who he said, but he said to himself included, we're streaky. Like we're not the best shooters. And, you know, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther are going to have to be guys that are relied on heavily off that bench, along with Russell Westbrook. I think for me, the bad moments were the Russell Westbrook minutes and Jamal Murray. Like, Jamal Murray just looked awful that game. You know, he wasn't able to hit his shots. You know, he was making a couple bad decisions. I think that's the real problem. But this OKC team, to me, just felt like they were completely ready for the matchup. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I think, you know, them not having Isaiah Hartenstein was fake crazy, and they still were able, they were still able to do that to the Denver Nuggets. So Denver definitely has to figure out that spacing issue. I don't know how it's going to happen. You know, they just signed Aaron Gordon to an extension. Shout out to Aaron Gordon. So they're pretty much tied to their starting five in terms of money-wise. So it's going to be very hard for a team like this to really, you know, get shooting or just get anything in the middle of the season, because they don't really have many trade assets. They don't really have many picks. So, and I don't even know if they can go through the buyout market, because I believe they're a second apron team. I don't know that for certain, though. But this team is going to have to be very Joker reliant in some Jamal Murray superhero moments for sure.
And I think the biggest part of the clip that I don't think we mentioned so far, how frustrated OKC had Nikola Jokic, because look at this right here. He spins momentarily, and then he – okay, oh, you went all the way back to the beginning. Okay, right there. He tries to dunk right there. Nikola Jokic just tried to dunk. If that is not a testament to how pissed off Nikola Jokic was during this game, I don't know what is, because Isaiah Hartenstein wasn't in this game. And I think against a team like Denver, it'll be really important to have that type of body on Nikola Jokic, allowing Chet Holmgren to roam and protect the rim. Chet can't guard Jokic one-on-one, and they still had to hold them to 87 points. Now imagine when Hartenstein comes back in, so they can have that wall to throw at Jokic just to get him a little bit tired. And then all of a sudden, I think OKC's length is going to multiply because they can just play zone. So I think that is the biggest part of that clip. When Nikola Jokic dunks, that is the biggest triple middle finger that he could ever give anybody, because he does not want to go three inches above a curb. So, yeah, that was something that stood out to me.
Absolutely. And I think another thing, too, is no matter what the Nuggets try to do, if you want to throw Julian Strawther into the starting lineup, you've now only got one above average defender. And you're probably going to be a bottom 10 defense at the very best if you try to really supplement that floor spacing by putting an all offense group out there. Then on the flip side, it's like, all right, even if we have two non-floor spacers on the floor, we're still getting up 120 points. And I think it's really a tough push-pull for the Nuggets, where you don't necessarily have like a optimal group, if that makes sense. When you have Bruce Brown, KCP, you're looking at 3 high-level defenders on the floor. Now you're looking at maybe 2. That comes with a lot of side effects. So I think the Nuggets will figure it out. I've got them as the top 4 seed. I'm still a 50-win team. But I think more than anything in the playoffs, we're going to see that really manifest, where they're still missing that extra piece, that established floor spacer. I trust Christian Brown to make shots, but I don't think any team's really going to defend him with a lot of respect.
Now, you know, the one thing, I know we're literally 48 minutes into the basketball season, but Denver could have drafted Ryan Dunn 22nd overall, the way he's shooting right now. Mm-hmm. That would have been a dude who might have connected a lot of pieces. Of course, the Dayton rookie? Can someone bring me his name again? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I got you.
Holmes, right? Dayron Holmes.
Dayron Holmes.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about Dayron or someone else.
Yeah, poor guy got injured over Summer League, but I thought that Denver needed another guy who can just defend and shoot, and Ryan Dunn was the worst shooting prospect outside of like Amin Thompson that I've seen. And then all of a sudden now he's just nailing threes. So he could have been the key piece for Denver.
Yeah, but he probably would have been – they probably would have defended him just like Christian Brown, honestly. Like, you got to whichever way they went in the draft, it would have been hard to really just get a rookie to come in and just help them, because their aspiration is championship. They want to win an NBA championship. And I think them kind of – I don't want to say missing, but not necessarily hitting on these second-round pick, first-round picks, like hitting on these late guys like Peyton Watson, like Julian Strawther up until this point, so far, like Christian Brown up until this point. Like, these guys, and Zeke Najee's another one. Like, these guys, they're not fully hitting on, and now they're losing their guys in free agency. It's kind of a rough situation, losing Bruce Brown going back to a year ago, then losing KCP, kind of losing the backbones of your perimeter defense, and losing the guys that can kind of space the floor. So you're definitely it's going to come down to those 3 guys. I mean, just in there, Westbrook is horrible. I don't know what we have to lie about. I don't know why the Westbrook fan club has to come up and defend that man. Listen, he's a Hall of Famer. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. You know, he's an MVP. He averaged a triple-double twice, probably 3 times. You know, he's done things Oscar Robinson we haven't seen since Oscar Robinson. Shout out to Russell Westbrook. He's going to go down as one of the best ever. He's horrible right now. He's just not a good basketball player. I mean, the energy he brings is infectious. He's literally energy for energy, probably the most high energy guy in the NBA. But at the same time, the energy does not match the skill set. The energy does not match the IQ. And this man simply cannot shoot the ball. He cannot shoot from the mid-range. His free throws are broken. You know, he can't finish at the same clip he used to. And he still, at this point in his career, makes awful, dreadful, bad decisions with the ball. So I just don't know. And I get it. The Joker vouched for Westbrook. Maybe he saw something different. He's obviously more knowledgeable of the game than I am. So maybe he saw something a lot more different than me. But we've seen this Westbrook story multiple times. Like even in the playoffs last year, the Clippers could not play him. Like he lost minutes. He lost minutes. The Clippers just could not put him out there because Westbrook was a complete negative on the offensive side of the floor. Defensively, he'll give you efforts. You know, defensively, he'll give you some slight help side defense. He'll give you some cool blocks that has the crowd go bananas and you get that energy. But on offense, he's just a complete negative, and you're adding a negative with a bunch of unproven players on your bench is probably not going to succeed. So I'm still hopeful because I believe in the Joker, and I think Jamal Murray is going to pick it up eventually. You know, but I definitely am looking at OKC and Denver, and it's like, that may be a nasty matchup, you know, but I'm still hopeful for this team.
Me too. And to highlight that point, the Nuggets were -15 the 6 minutes that Russ played in the first quarter with Julian Strawther coming in. I think the reason why they signed him is to be that table setter, someone that gets those young guys going and is able to kind of amplify what Julian Strawther brings as a shooter. He can defend the ball, but there's kind of more problems that he creates if you want to ever play him with starters because he just isn't that high level or respected floor spacer. I think this comes back to that. And even when he was in his first day with the Clippers making shots from mid-range and 3, he wasn't being guarded out there. So I think more than anything, that kind of highlights the issues, the limitations with Russ, and just kind of why he has to play in a bench role. But I guess after that, we can move on to our not our rookie skill extensions, but just generally our upcoming crop of new contract deals that just came around.
Shout out to these guys.
Yeah, we got in the last couple of days, we had 9 extensions. So I think it's really important to mention right before the season tipped off, that was basically the start or the deadline of the 2021 class being able to get extended before hitting restricted free agency. So we had, I believe, 8 players from 2021 get extended that day. Of course, over the summer, we had Cade, we had Mobley, Barnes, Wagner, those types of guys get big contracts. But Jalen Johnson, Moses Moody, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Trey Murphy, Jalen Suggs, Aaron Gordon, and Corey Kispert were the 2021 guys who got extended on Tuesday. And we also got a Rudy Gobert extension that night as well. And Minnesota didn't need to extend Rudy Gobert that day. They still had a lot of time. But I suppose they just wanted to get it out of the way before the season. And we'll break down the notable ones. Look, we don't have to get too much into the Corey Kispert and Moses Moody ones, right? We can all agree they're solid. They're solid role players who can space the floor. It's good having them on the roster.
I have a theory. No, I don't have a theory. I have an issue with Moses Moody's contract. I do. Not because of him not deserving it. He hasn't played much, so I don't even know if we can say he deserves it or not. But shout out to him for getting his money. Here's my thing. You haven't played him. Let's just call it how we see it. You haven't played him much in the last 3 years, right? You are still trying to figure out his ways in the lineup. This offseason that just passed, you went out there and grabbed like 10 role players, 10 solid role players. Like obviously 10 is hyperbole, but you grabbed a shit ton of good role players. Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, shout out to him. He's doing his thing. Anthony Melton, who's probably should start in my opinion. But you grabbed a solid collection of role players. And then you extend Moses Moody, and then you still are trying to figure out his fit in this lineup. And I get it; it's a team friendly. It's like a Aaron Wiggins contract, and I think him being Aaron Wiggins wouldn't be too far off. Aaron Wiggins is a really good role player, a solid rotational piece for the OKC Thunder. So you gave him that type of contract, but what's the plan for him? And tying it to Kuminga not getting an extension, why didn't you just trade him if you weren't going to extend him? Like where is your mindset with all of this? That's my thought. Probably you extend Moody, but you don't have a plan for Moody. You don't extend Kuminga, but you want to keep Kuminga. Like I don't understand where the direction is. I'm very confused. I do think Mike Dunleavy, I'm going to give him a little bit of a leeway because this is his first time being like the guy in charge. And he did have a good offseason. I'm not going to say he did it. He did have a good offseason in bringing these guys in. So, but just figuring those two guys out, I'm very intrigued to see how this goes because I'm sure Kuminga's probably looking at it like there's been reports where he wants 35, lost me. You shouldn't get that. You're not getting that. But then you see Moses Moody gets paid, and they don't even treat him like he's a part of this future. So it's kind of looking at it like, well, why you paid him and didn't pay me? I would have extended the Kuminga, maybe gave him like $25 million a year, just to see where the potential was at. But definitely a puzzling move by the Golden State organization. But shout out to Corey Kispert, free him. Hopefully he goes to a playoff team. I think this is exactly the person Denver needs if they ever could have had him. Guy, they would have loved Corey Kispert because a guy with a little bit of some playmaking chops, a good connected passer, great three-point shooter. But yeah, shout out to Corey Kispert. He's a solid player. Going to be a solid player for a long time.
Speaking of that, have you guys ever seen like the Wizards trade theory?
No.
So I can't remember every single player on this list, but there's especially the last 6 years, there's a very wide list of players who just get traded out of Washington and then they win the title the next year.
Really?
Yeah. John, do you know? Can you break down some of the notable names on that list?
I know last year Daniel Gafford.
It was Daniel Gafford last. Oh, he made the finals, so he didn't even meet the expectation of this technically. But I'm pretty sure I can't. My mind's going completely blank. I can't remember all the names on it. I'm pretty sure Jeff Green was on that list, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he was. I think he was on.
Did he play for Washington?
I might be wrong, but there's a pretty deep list. Let me see. Where did I see it? I saw it on TikTok because TikTok's the entire source of internet information now. But
I remember Otto Porter going way back. He played for Washington, went to Golden State, won a title.
Yes.
Who won the title the next year after that?
The Nuggets. The Nuggets had Ish Smith, former Wizard.
Smith. Okay, here we go. We're getting somewhere. You said 6 years. So 2021, who won? The Bucks?
Yep.
Who got traded to who the fuck was on Washington and got sent to the Bucks?
Let's look this up. I'm trying to see if I see any former.
It could have been a Sun
Was
player.
Bobby Portis, was he on the Wizards?
Yep.
No, he wasn't on the Wizards.
No, that's what I thought.
Wizards.
I'm crazy. I
What the fuck he was? He played for the Wizards?
Yes, that's the one.
He did? Oh my gosh, dude.
2020 Lakers.
He
won the
was on
championship.
Washington for 28
And the
games.
2020 Lakers had.
Yep. He was on the Wizards for 28 games. I forgot about that. So
The
Bobby was on the Wizards.
The 2020 Lakers had Markieff Morris, who played on the Wizards in 2019.
Yeah.
The 2019 champion Raptors played the Warriors. I don't know a Warrior that was in the Wizards, but a Raptor player who might have played in Washington was Jody Meeks. I don't check that.
Let me see this. Jody Meeks.
Yep. Jody Meeks
he was on the Wizards the year before.
2018 champion Warriors. That's a tough one.
And then
Jody Meeks is a hilarious name. I'll be honest. I forgot about him. I forgot about him.
A pure bucket.
13 legend.
Absolutely. All right.
Obviously, KP last year.
Yep.
Obviously.
KP that's who I was really thinking of. It wasn't Gafford was another name, but he didn't win the championship.
Yeah, it was KP. Corey Kispert, whoever you get traded to, man, they're the favorites to win the title. So shout out. Or maybe Denny with the Portland Trailblazers. I'm just kidding. No.
Imagine Denny in Denver. Oh, man. You get yourself a shooter who's a really awesome isolation defender. He'd honestly be just as good, if not better, than Aaron Gordon. You want to bench Aaron Gordon, but Denny at the three?
Denny is also one of the best transition players in the league.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's Corey Kispert. Let's throw a little.
Riv got muted for a second. We got you back.
Out,
We're here.
Yep.
Hold on.
Yep, you're live.
Back. A mic came out. Corey Kispert. Let's throw an idea.
Yeah.
You traded at the deadline. Where would he go? Who would trade for him?
What is Corey Kispert worth, first of all? Is he
a late first-round pick?
Because I think he's worth more than that. I think he is.
Couple of
He's
seconds.
not worth a lottery pick.
I kind of would, if I was like a.
Wait, what year? Let me ask that. What year? Like a 2028, I could see it.
Years.
Okay, 2028. 2025, he's not worth a 2025 lottery pick.
Definitely not a lottery pick. But Kispert is like a top shooter in the NBA and a good enough off-ball player, fine enough defender to be worth like the 24th overall.
I feel like seconds are way more valuable now. I'd give up 2 seconds, maybe 3.
I get multiple seconds in the first rounder with like a strong protection.
And
yes.
Ooh, that's a lot.
He averaged 13.5 points last year. He's a 40% career 3-point shooter, and he just fits in so well as like a 5th starter in your lineup. Maybe for some teams you want to start, but he'd still play 20.
It also depends on who's finessing that too. Drew Holiday went for 3 first-round picks
and stuff.
Yeah, brother, I don't know about that.
If you're the Hawks, for example, and you got the Lakers first. Let's just say the Lakers are pretty clearly a playoff team. Let's just say that happens. I'm not sure if they'll be healthy enough.
They'd give up a first.
Yeah, they'll give up that a first for that, right? The Lakers first. So like, I don't know. If someone said let's trade pick 16 for Corey Kispert, I would say, yeah, I'll trade pick 16. You know?
It's because he's on a cost-controlled contract. It's a good deal that a lot of teams can fit into the payroll. So you're honestly doing the team that's acquiring him an extra favor. It's not
like
hard
if I'm Philly, I'm throwing a first and a second for him.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Philly
good deal. Absolutely.
Yeah,
if they can make it happen.
Yeah,
I'm drafted Dalton Knecht 16th overall, and that's kind of your Dalton Knecht in a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Probably better for your team. Like
they took McCain over Knecht, and I think McCain's going to translate worse. Here's a Wizard that got traded to a semi-contender, the Lakers, and that was 3 second-round picks, but Hachimura had an upcoming extension due. So since he was expiring, he was only getting a couple of seconds. I think Kispert's more trade value because of his deal. I
agree. Okay, let's stop talking about Moody.
Yeah, I mean, Corey Kispert talked for 5 minutes. Now I expect to start the segment.
We're not that boring. Now let's go deeper into the weeds. What other role players should we talk about, guys?
Oh my God. Can we talk about the juicy extensions, the Jalen Greens, the Alperen Senguns of the world?
Let's talk about Jared Vanderbilt and when he returned. No. Okay, let's go into the actual fun contracts. No disrespect.
Let's talk about it. Who actually loves the Sengun extension?
It's fine. It's nothing.
It's a really good deal. $35 million for a player who I expect to be a top 25 player by the end of this year.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I know about that. Yes, I do.
Okay. Is this a hater moment coming up? Do I sense?
Okay, Rev, hate. This is.
Do I sense some hate? You know, he's the reason they lost. They blew the lead to Charlotte, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know why, right?
Give us the breakdown, Rev.
No, I'm asking you. Do you know why? I'm asking.
I mean,
like, what do you think happened?
He did have 25 and 18 in that game.
Oh, you're a stat guy. You're stat watching. Listen, no, all jokes aside, 35 is calm. I think there's 3 archetypes for that type of player, and we literally have them in the league right now. It's the Joker, it's Sabonis, and then Sengun. Like, it's literally those 3 guys. It's
that Pokemon meme.
Yeah, it's the playmaking center. I wish I had the word for it, but I think Sengun can be better than Sabonis. I do think that. Like, I think that's a real thing. I think his playmaking is much better. I do think Sabonis is a handoff merchant as fuck. Like as fuck. I think Sengun can actually make passes out the short roll. You know, can hit guys cutting down baseline. I think he can legitimately do a lot of those things. Bring the ball up, do all that. Now, the Joker is a different beast. And I think when you're a big man and you don't have that defensive ability, you really have to be this guy on offense, like a true one-of-one beast on offense to combat for your defense. Because it's really hard in the game like now to win with your center being bad defensively. And I think the effort is there with Sengun. He's just not good defensively. I think that's okay. Like, not everybody's a good defender. You know, he's slow-footed. You know, he can't protect the rim. Like we talk about Joker.
He's got a funny build.
The Joker doesn't like to jump off 3 feet off the floor. Sengun can't. So it's just like these guys are not built to do that. So I think his extension was cool, but I think at the same time, do you think you can actually win with him as your starting center? You know, I think with the young players that you have, I love Amon to death. You're kind of, developing him to be a role player, because of Fred being in front of him, he's more of the ball handler. Jalen Green, because since we're going to tie both of them in, I love his extension because it was good money, and you can trade it if need be. If need be. You know, he's played solid the last 2 games. I think people talking about his shot chucking. Brother, what the fuck you think Zach LaVine is? Zach LaVine, he's just efficient as shit. But Zach LaVine is a shot chucker. That's what he does. Some guys come in and the game is about buckets. So you don't need you to do too much. Go get a fucking bucket because that's what we asked you to do. And they asked Jalen Green to go get a bucket. Is he doing it efficiently? Not yet. But he goes get a bucket. He was clutch as shit for them in that game against Charlotte until, you know, unfortunately somebody blew it for them. But at the same time, I think I like the Jalen Green extension a lot more because I think it's tradable. Sengun, do you think he could be, you know, top 20 player in the league? Do you think he could be a top 15 player in the league?
No.
I don't know if he can be that. I don't think so if I had to gamble on it. But the extension is fine because you want to see where he's at. But it's going to be really tough in the West to walk around and your guy who's, you know, the back line of your defense is not being good. But I guess that's why they brought in these guys like Amon with defensive capabilities, Cam with the defensive potential, Jabari, who's, I think, all jokes, like, I think we all agree Jabari is a solid defender at this point. He's just a little skinny and frail. There's no shame in it. Tari Eason's a good defender. So you brought these guys that can play defense. Fred is also a really good one-on-one defender.
Shepard eventually.
Yeah.
He's got like those cat reflex.
Yeah, he's annoying. Like he's really annoying. That's what you like as a defender. But I don't know how far they go with this core. I think eventually you saw Giannis. He might want out. You're thinking Devin Booker. If Kevin Durant leaves, he may want out. You're definitely gearing up to like get one of these guys because, you know, you do have a lot of players, but you don't know what they're going to be.
My issue with this is that the Rockets had top 10 defense last year with Alperen Sengun. And the other part of it, too, is with how much they've surrounded him with good perimeter defenders, I'm okay with him being a starting center, absolutely, because he is a crossbreed of Jokic and Sabonis, where I think he's a better version of Sabonis and a worse version of Jokic, and it'll be somewhere in between those two players. We're talking about one of the best passing bigs I've ever seen. And he just kind of opens up the game because last year he made 47% of his mid-range shots. He's got that push shot that Sabonis to struggle with to consistently make. And I do believe he can be an offensive hub. If Jalen Green starts to make the shots they did when Sengun was out the lineup at the end of the year, you have yourself a formidable group that can add that shot creation to kind of elevate Sengun. Last year, they didn't quite have that three-point shooting. They're 23rd in percentage at 35%, around middle of the pack in attempts. It was better than the year before where they're bottom 5 in shooting, but I still think there's levels for the rest of the group to grow because Sengun gets a lot of open looks. And I just think he opens up an offense with, in today's NBA, you can have so many different types of passers. He's far and away one of the most unique at creating advantages. And I'm watching back this Hornet game to educate myself, Riff. He was at the game when they blew a double-digit lead. It was Jock Londy on those minutes, and they started making
I was
shots.
trolling you, bro.
So I'm going to watch the end of this fourth quarter and really test you because I don't think Sengun did anything specifically to blow that game unless you have something that I haven't yet seen.
No, brother, I was just trolling you. They just blew the league as a group. But I would say this.
And Sengun was at the game for that stretch.
Yeah, I would say this, though. That top 10 defense shit sounds cool, but in a playoff series where you can scheme up against a guy who can get picked apart, like we've seen Utah Jazz, and not saying it's Rudy's fault, but we've seen the Utah Jazz be a top 3 defense in the league with Utah probably back-to-back years. And then in the playoffs, all you need is one scheme. You know, you can be very exploitable.
Right.
You have that missing guy.
Vucevic in Orlando for years.
Yeah. Vucevic is. I wouldn't say Sengun is Vucevic. Vucevic is a horrible defender. He's really fucking bad.
I've got some data though for you, Riv.
Oh, I hate data. I really do, but I'm sure it's gonna lie to me. So tell me what the data says.
Yeah, I prefer Fanalytics.
Fanalytics, yeah, that can be a segment. So this is by Clean the Glass, which filters out garbage time minutes.
Talk to me.
Last year, opponents shot 1.5% worse at the rim when Sengun was defending within 3 feet.
I believe
ranked in the 68th percentile among centers.
I believe
he did grow and get more, I guess, acclimated. He is a good enough, like an underrated athlete vertically, to where guys were not just feasting on him inside the paint.
My question is, what's the volume, though? What's the volume? Like, how often are they testing him at the rim?
Well, that's in 2,000 minutes played. The amount of attempts I can find for you in a minute or two.
You know, James, I saw this thing that B-Ball reference. Shout out to them. They dropped the top 10. It was a top 10 big thing where they were defending at the rim. Nurkic was 4. So, you know.
Watch that game last night?
Yeah.
You know why. Nurkic is a heavy drop back big. So where he really gives up the most
but it's
shots
like people, but he's like, stats are still weird. So weird. Stats are just
stats with context are important.
I agree. Stats with context are very important. I don't know how much
Yeah.
context you can add to a stat that says Nurkic was the 4th best rim protector in the
I
league.
just need some context.
No, I'm
You
saying
had to
like,
drop back big.
yeah, you could drop back, but it's like
It's hard to finish on him because he's just a burly center that's able to kind of get in your chest.
He's a
But
pretty
he's getting
big
up
dude.
so many short mid-range shots that guys are going to feast and pick and roll, and then he'll do a decent job at the rim.
yeah, he's pretty big though. I'll give him that.
Ennis got thin though, or not Ennis. Yusuf Nurkic has gotten pretty thin. I noticed. I was next to him last week, and my first thought was like, "Oh my gosh, he's had to cut 10, 15 pounds at least this summer."
Right.
Like Nurkic is skinny now.
Mhm.
Damn.
Yeah, but no, I'm with you guys. I think honestly surprised just because it feels like we're just handing out max extensions like Oprah when she gives people cars. You know what I mean? Like you get a max, you get a max, you get a max. Like that's just how the NBA has been.
Right.
I'm actually genuinely surprised because Sengun, you can make a real case, was the best player in the 2021 class last year. And you can make a case for that. I wouldn't agree with it, but you can make a case for that. And getting that on $36 million a year, I mean, that's tradable. Also, I think it's just not a bad contract considering you're probably going to consistently get 22 and 6 from him and 10 rebounds. Getting that for 5 years, $37 million. I think there's definitely like a conversation with the second apron that's going to come along with these extensions because I think a year ago, Sengun gets his extension for a max, but now people are getting a little scared of giving the Brandon Ingrams of the world max contracts. So maybe Sengun is kind of a victim to that, and maybe Ingram is probably the next in line who's not going to get the $40 million. That's a whole different conversation. But then Jalen Green, I love the extension. I'm not a Jalen Green guy. I've told people, like, I keep watching him and I keep getting PTSD of Timberwolves Andrew Wiggins because Timberwolves Andrew Wiggins was mega athletic, mega talented, always took the wrong shots, can't defend this microphone right here. And then, like, literally every time he would shoot, you could hear the clank before he shoots it. There's some natural touch shooters, and it's like he has to swish it or he's going to flip and clank it, you know? And I don't trust him necessarily, but I do acknowledge the upside if he figures out some of those things because the space creation and the athleticism are real. And if he works, then you got a bargain deal. And for Jalen's side, it's like, okay, now I can actually get my next extension quicker because it's I think it's a 2+1 3-year deal, something like that. And then after that, if you're Houston, if it doesn't work, you can trade him. But then also the last thing, you were talking about the Devin Booker idea. I think it was Riv, right? You were talking about that. You can technically package both Sengun and Green likely in a deal to bring in a supermax contract potentially. Maybe the other team brings a small something back, but like, I mean, supermaxes are like $60 million now, and these two will be making $70 million combined approximately. And by doing that, then potentially it might be like an easy route to just bring in a big contract if you deal both of them. Like, let's say Giannis wants out in a year, and then it's like, look, we can give you Green and Sengun and a couple picks. So that's like we got talent, we can bring in those contracts, and you know what? If you're Houston, you don't have to bring the actual complimentary guys you probably want around Giannis, like, you know, Nama Thompson, Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, etc. So I think the deals were very good for Houston.
If I'm Houston, there's no way I'm trading Sengun. And also Jalen Green for Giannis at 30, personally. That's the future. That's the core of your upside.
Is it?
What?
Is it? Are you sure?
What?
I'm a little bit disappointed in you two. Let me ask you questions.
What
Alperen Sengun,
Wait.
We got to talk about this. I believe Alperen Sengun is going to be a top 25 player. I don't think he'll be a 1A, but I definitely think he'll be a 1B on the contender. But Giannis is going to be 30 years old. Giannis is going to be 30 years old, and I don't think they have the core to elevate Giannis better than what the Bucks can right now. I don't think they're in the position to go all in on Giannis. That's not on their timeline.
So, like, the
I
thing
think
is, though, is
I think Wilder was saying like 2 years down the road.
Yeah, look.
And then you're nuts.
1 year.
Like,
1 or 2
what,
down the road.
Who do you think this guy is? This is Giannis we're talking about.
It is Giannis.
This ain't no regular dude.
Top 20 player of all time. But how about
top 3 player in the league? Like, this is arguably the second best player in the world.
How about Giannis's game age from 32 to 35? I don't expect him to still be.
He's built like a Greek god. I'll bet on it.
Probably the same way Sengun's game is going to age from now to 2 years down the road.
Okay,
Giannis will be better. By far.
Okay, we'll have to see on.
He'll be better than Sengun in 2 years.
easily.
Probably. Yeah, I agree. But
Not a thought in my mind.
Jalen Green, is that a positive contract? We don't know yet.
But let me ask you guys a question. I think we can all agree. Sengun to me is an elite passer.
Yes.
I also believe he can become an elite rebounder similar to Sabonis.
Yes.
And then I also believe
I don't fully agree with that.
Okay.
He doesn't have the same size as Sabonis does, nor does he he's physical, but he's more physical in the aggressive way. Like Sabonis is he's got like a freakish knack for rebounding. I mean, didn't he lead the league in rebounds last year?
Yep.
I mean, Sengun's 6'9", and I don't want to
Sengun.
Sabonis is a way longer, way more stout build. Sengun's kind of I don't know, stuck together physically.
Sengun's he positions himself well for rebounds.
Yeah.
He's a physical rebounder, and he grew up from 6'9", about 6'10", 6'11".
Let's also point out that Giannis is a great passer, and Giannis is already an elite rebounder.
Yeah,
and he's a defensive player of the year.
I'm with you on the point of if you can get Giannis, you do, but I don't think Houston's timeline will be at a point to where it makes sense to acquire Giannis.
I don't know. They're only good if they make the playoffs this year, right? Let's just hypothetically walk us through this whole hypothetical life we have here. Let's say they make the playoffs, right? They win the play-in, make the playoffs. Now you're thinking okay, depending on how this playoff series goes, which honestly, it doesn't matter. We completed our goal this year of getting to the playoffs. Your next year's goal is let's win a playoff series. Then if you do that next year, it's wait a minute. We kind of want to, we're in the timeline now where we want to win. Hey, Giannis wants to leave. Hey, Devin Booker wants to leave. Hey, whoever the fuck else is, maybe Donovan Mitchell's available again. Hey, we want to acquire a guy that can jump us over the hump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may not fully agree with trading both. I may not, because Dylan Brooks.
I'm trading both and not thinking about them.
Dylan Brooks still might have a 22 on his books too by the end of that year or wherever they wanted. I think he had a 4-year, $88 million deal, so I think he'll be on the books still. So I'm not fully on the way on trading both, but listen, one of them got to go, respectfully, in the most respectful way.
Well, what I'm saying is you can technically put both of those contracts theoretically together and probably have a relatively clean deal to trade them. I'm just wondering how strategic was Houston on those numbers, because it's slightly over a Supermax contract. So theoretically, if you get in, if you trade both of them, you can bring in a $65 million player or whatever, and then plus a few other million from another player just to make the second apron stuff match, right? So it's clean. A lot of these teams with superstars have second apron issues, right? And so you have to swap even deals, so 2 for 2, 1 for 1, whatnot. So if you're trading Green and Sengun and you need to go a little above the Supermax anyway, it just feels like a really creative number to have those two making Jalen's case 33 on average and Sengun 36 on average. It just feels very, very clean cut. Where I just feel we can't rule out the idea of dealing both theoretically as pure contracts.
That's true. You could also deal the $20 million of Dylan Brooks and one extra mid-level contract too.
But then you have to deal you have to put in another $15 million. It's not as clean.
That idea more.
It's a 3-2 deal, and I
mean,
said,
but to be fair, you'll have to send probably one more young player anyways if you're getting one of those guys. So
or Phoenix's first round picks.
I feel if hypothetically, if you throw in, let's say Jalen Green's the guy, right? You throw in Jalen Green, which is $30 million. You throw in Dylan Brooks, $52 million. You grab one of those young players, Reed Shepherd's $10-12 million, so that makes it $63 million.
They're not putting Reed Shepherd in that deal too.
So I can't deal with Sengun and Green, but you could do Sengun, Shepherd, and I'll do the first deal. Easy.
First of all, Jalen Green, Reed Shepherd, and Dylan Brooks is exactly what you throw in to get Devin Booker. I don't know who do you think Reed Shepherd's going to be.
Giannis for a second.
I think Reed Shepherd's going to be the best player in the draft.
I think Reed Shepherd's going to be really good, but we're talking Devin Booker here. We're not talking about
No, I get that. What I'm saying is if you're Houston, I would much rather, unless Reed Shepherd extremely disappoints, I would call and say, look, we got a really clean deal, Green and Sengun right here, and then we can add first round picks to that instead of giving up a Shepherd or giving up. That's what I'm saying. You would do those two plus picks more so than try to deal 4 young players. I would go to a lot of names before I go down to Amin or Shepherd. I'd be wait, you want Tari? You want Cam? You know what I mean? That's just where I stand. I could be wrong. Shepherd might not be good, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be good. So
me too.
We'll see.
Let's move on to the next contract we got. What are we looking at?
Let's talk about Jalen Suggs. 5 years, $150.5 million.
What's that, 30 a year?
Yeah, 30 point.
Okay.
Yeah, 30.1 million.
How
a
much
year.
they gave Derek White?
So they gave, what was that deal?
$28 million a year.
That's fine to me. Sengun getting 30 is fine to me because I think that's probably around his peak. Is like Derek White now, like maybe a little bit better. But I think Jalen Suggs is a fine role player. I think he's a really great role player. I don't think he'll be. I don't think he'll be a star. I don't think that. I always thought his ceiling was Marcus Smart, like for a championship team, like the gritty guy, the guy that's your best perimeter defender that can space the floor, solid, connective passer, nothing too insane. But I think what you got with Suggs is he had a really bad first year. Last year, he put everything together. Still needs to work on his playmaking. Definitely still makes a couple bad decisions. Doesn't make the proper reads that he needs to. But at the same time, solid shooter. Let's see if it sticks this year. Last year, he broke out. Let's see if it continues. Great defender. Like, he's a great defender. On ball, off ball, he's there with it. So I think, and he's really young. So I think he has a lot like that he can still improve on. Maybe he can be a low end all-star at the tail end of his career. But I love this contract for Jalen Suggs. They bet on it. They bet on him. You already gave Wagner that money. Why not just tie up Jalen Suggs too? You kind of have your 3 building blocks for your young future, in Wagner, Boncaro, Suggs. And I think Suggs, I think Wagner has more potential. I think he's the guy who you're counting on to be the number 2. But I think Suggs is probably going to get to his potential. Like that's more what's the word I'm looking for? That's more what's the word? I feel like I would, if I had to put a percentage on who would grab their potential more, I think Suggs for me is like a 99%. Like, I think he's going to get to his potential. Right. He's going to be there. So I love this contract.
Yeah, me too. We're talking about it on Pick a Side with Joel, and he didn't like it because of the fact that Suggs doesn't have that extra gear to him as a shot creator. And we haven't really seen that at any point in his career. But to me, what it comes down to is that Jalen Suggs just spearheaded a top 5 defense as a guard. And without him, Orlando's culture is going to be completely different because, like you highlighted, it's a Marcus Smart-like energy that raises everyone else's intensity, commitment, and just overall buy-in to the defense side of the ball. And Suggs did last year make roughly 38% of his threes, 39%, 5 attempts a game. You're looking at someone that can definitely, like you highlighted, make better decisions, and I think he can get better as a passer. My only concern would be maybe injuries. That's something he dealt with in high school, leading up to his first 2 years in the league. But last year, played 75 games. I just think it's a matter of him being an even more established shooter. He only shot 29% in those 7 games in the first round versus the Cavaliers. I just want to see him really commit to being like a high-level shooter that defenses have to pull out of. Because if now guys are closing out hard on Jalen Suggs, he can drive and become more of a playmaker. And I think that's going to get him to be that Derek White level of a player, maybe on the offensive side. But White made $29.5 million, Suggs making slightly more. I think that's completely fine.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that a little bit. Just a question, guys, because I've been looking at some of the rotation minutes, and of course, it's only 2 games in the season. But, earlier today we were talking about the Warriors, and Moody and Kuminga are playing 17 minutes a game. And it's like, why is Kuminga playing 17 minutes a game, right? I look up Jalen Suggs, and he's only playing 17 minutes a game so far this season. Is Orlando just beating teams? I know the Miami game was a blowout win, but was the Brooklyn game that big of a blowout for him to only average 17 minutes a game?
Well, he played 21 in that game. The first game played 12. I didn't get to see that.
But they beat him by 15, so I
didn't really watch that game. So was he like hurt or something, or
he wasn't in foul trouble? I'm going to start by saying this: I will never watch a game that the Nets are playing on. So I didn't watch that game. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you and say I did it. Yeah. I will say the Miami Heat game though, they were whipping their ass, so he didn't really need to play too much to that. So I don't know. Like the Nets game, I don't know. But to be fair, he was the only negative on the starting 5, plus minus wise.
Yeah, so, I think the jury's out now. I think it was a horrible contract now that I hear that. But
Anthony Black though. Anthony Black played well. We're here.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think Jalen Suggs, I think we're all in the same book here. I'm kind of surprised we're all in the same book here because I think we're in this weird thing where 30 is the new 20 in the NBA, and it's just going to take some time for us to just kind of put those pieces together. I agree. I think when you compare him to a guy like Marcus Smart, I think he's got more upside than Marcus Smart does because I actually trust Suggs, his trajectory as a movement shooter. as a spot up shooter more than I do Marcus Smart. Because Smart, it's always looked funky. There's always been a lot of motion,
Streaky.
not a lot of great touch. Yep.
Yeah.
Trigger happy, definitely.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Absolutely. And Suggs a better athlete too.
Yeah, he's quicker. He's more explosive.
Smart is just the physicality. Smart is like 6'4", strong as shit. Can probably guard 1 through 5 in stretches. Like he's a big, solid dude.
Right. I just think
exactly.
Like
So
I had before.
just to recap, I think it's a good extension. I think he's going to be 1 to 3 best defensive guards in the league in his prime, and I think he's going to hit shots. You know what? Like when he came into the league, when he came from Gonzaga, the idea was like a Kyle Lowry type, someone who's like running your offense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's his game, and I think the moment Orlando just said, you know what, we're just going to have Paolo be our hub, and Suggs just make everything simple and play hard and just be like incredibly instinctive. That's when Suggs really put it together. But yeah, I'm very I like the contract. I can't say I love giving somebody we're still 50-50 on the offense, 30 million. Can't say I absolutely love it, but I understand it, and I think it's pretty good.
My one thing, which I kind of touched on, Jalen Suggs is a really good passer. I just think it's a matter of getting more attention and respect to be able to create those advantages. Because we saw
he's
that
very
in kind of
instinctive.
Gonzaga. It's just a matter of him getting more kind of runway, really. Because once he has like that initial advantage off a closeout, I think he do a lot of really good things and maybe get from 2.5 to 4.5 assists. So
I'm with that. So okay, we all like that contract. So I made a horrible pick to cause some fighting. Okay, let's move to the next one. Jalen Johnson. I think this is my favorite extension. 5 years, $150 million. I'll just start it off. I think Jalen Johnson's a star. I think he's going to be one of the 5 or 6 best players in that draft class. And I think getting him on this contract very quickly is going to look crazy because if I had to put money on it, I think in the next 2-3 years, he's on an all-star team. I just think that size, that playmaking, that growing skill, the athleticism. I mean, he was consistently a top 5, top 10 pick throughout the draft process. And like Cam Whitmore, just like fell last second. So I think he's super talented. And I think he's the Hawks like number 2 guy, unless Versace, overtakes him some way. So yeah, I really like it. What do you guys think?
I'm looking up this stat I had for Jalen Johnson. Hold on. Go, John. I have to find it.
I'm a big Jalen Johnson fan on the defensive end. And what I think this contract came down to was Atlanta buying into the long-term upside because he still is just coming off his first year as a rotation player. He's 21, 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And there's a lot for him to build off of for me. In the first 2 games, he struggled quite a bit as a finisher around the rim, but he has the athleticism. He's a physical enough player to me to be able to become a high teen step of scorer with him being able to create off a pick and roll as a finisher. And it's just a really good decision maker in those short roll situations to where he's spraying out different passes to shooters, whether it's Reese Shea or Hunter and now Dyson Daniels, who I'm going to talk about in our topical segment. It's just a matter of Johnson is kind of putting it all together, I think, in the inside. Because the 3-point shot last year was going in. He's a very good passer, a great athlete in the open space. But the finishing to me is kind of the last piece of his game that he's going to need to put together to ever reach that all-star ceiling. But I largely agree with this deal being, for $30 million a year, really good value because these are the types of guys that Atlanta was starving for the last couple of years. And he was kind of in the doghouse a little bit until Quin Snyder got there. I just think Quin's amplified and gave him more opportunity to really get his developmental on track.
This found the stat. Just wanted to point that out. This goes into what I'm going to say. What's my only problem with Jalen Johnson? One of my few problems with Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson in the half court, rim shot touch, 2023, 2024. Driving layups, 24 for 68, 35%. Driving floater, 16 for 51, 31%. And then the other game, last game, he was missing some easy ones too. And this goes right into, first of all, love the contract. I think it's the best contract of the deadline. I think Jalen Johnson is going to be a great player. I think he's a kind of a jack of all trades, do it all type of wing or small ball 4 or however you want to play him. But I do think he needs a little bit more bulk to his size. I do think he needs to be a little bit of a better finisher in the half court. I think he can do a lot of good things. And I think last year, was a kind of the open eye to what his game could really be, and although it was just 1 year, you kind of seen that this looks like it could be a sure thing for sure. He's really good in transition. He's a solid connective passer, nothing too crazy, but he's solid at it, solid rebounder, calm defender. And, the shooting is okay. it definitely is something that could be worked on. The form looks nice, so it's definitely something that you can see be better. But I do think he does have to finish. He has to work on that bulk and that physicality in the paint, trying to get better finishes. But Jalen Johnson's a good ass player, and I think he can, like you mentioned, I think he can be like a low end all-star. I think this is the type of guys Atlanta wanted when they drafted Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, and they unfortunately didn't get it. But credit to Lloyd Pierce and those two guys just not being able to live up to the potential. But now you have it in Jalen Johnson. I love how John credited Quin Snyder, because Quin Snyder, we've known he's a good coach. Like, he's not great
coach.
He's not. I don't know if he's great. I don't know if he's great.
He's top 10 in my opinion.
Yeah,
I love
top
Snyder.
10. Cap. I sniff cap.
Okay. Let's go on a little tangent here. Let's do our. Let's just name coaches. Okay.
I'm listening. I smell cap.
Okay. So we can get the obvious ones like Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra. We'll take those over Snyder, right?
You can add Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Mazzulla, sure. Would you take Will Hardy over Snyder?
If I would say yes, but his team's ass, so I'll put that in the maybe.
I would take Will Hardy over Snyder.
Oh,
Willie
so
Green.
we're on the same page. I love that. I thought I was going to get pushed back. Will Hardy. I would take Will Hardy.
Willie Green.
No.
I'm taking Snyder.
Okay. Steve Kerr, just the ethos of winning
Yes.
titles. Yep. Rick Carlisle.
Yes.
Carlisle.
They're very close. They're very similar to me.
Yeah, they're like the same. I think Rick,
same.
he's a little bit more experienced. I'll give it to Rick.
I would have to give him a little bit of kind of the benefit of the doubt factor.
Okay, Chris Finch.
No. Quin Snyder.
Okay.
I
love
lean
Finchy.
Snyder.
I'm biased though. So
Do you think Finch is genuinely the better head coach? Just no.
He doesn't think that.
I think here's the thing. I'll make my argument for Chris Finch. I think Chris Finch is a little better at Snyder in terms of, okay, this is my roster. I'm going to best position my roster to maximize what it does. He's one of the few coaches in the NBA. He could be an offensive mind, but he can look at a roster and say, look, we don't have the offensive personnel to do what I want to do. So let's completely spin what I like to do. And then look, Minnesota's all of a sudden the number one defense in the NBA. That's pretty good for an offensive coach, right? Scheming a great defense like that, because that's what the roster demanded. And going off the side, that's why you trade Cat on top of the roster flexibility. Finch loves multiple guys who can put pressure on the rim and kick out. That's what he loves. That's why he brought in Randall, and that's why they got Dante. And you're going to see a lot more pace and shooting and on-ball pressure. And I think we're going to see a really good Minnesota offense because of that, while maintaining that defense. So I think Chris Finch, and also that year in 2022, okay, this is a big rant now. Minnesota post-deadline with D'Lo, Cat, and that team that couldn't defend anything. They were the number one offense in the NBA as well that year for the final few months. So he always finds a way to maximize rosters. So you know what? I'll take my boy Finchy there.
I got some bad news for you. So I have my head coach rankings. It took me to pull them up. I'm looking at them. I don't think Snyder's a top 10 coach. If you want me to
name the 10.
rattle off like 1 to 10.
Yeah.
All right. Eric Spoelstra.
Sure.
Ime Udoka.
Sure.
Joe Mazzulla.
Is this in order?
Yes, roughly. But okay. No, Mazzulla I didn't have in my top 5.
No, that's fine. Just okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nick Nurse.
Sure. Yeah.
Tyronn Lue.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Jenkins.
Is Tyronn a LeBron merchant though? Sorry,
No.
that's a different combo.
I mean, if you
We
talk about
brought in the
maximizing rosters,
Why?
Tyronn Lue doesn't even have his star players like ever.
And
That's fair.
still took the Clippers to the conference finals for the first
He had
time.
Reggie Jackson playing like fucking
Mr.
Skip to
Lou.
my Lou, like
Yeah.
like.
Fair.
So now we're looking at 6 names. Mark
You
Dagnall.
said Taylor Jenkins?
Yeah.
That's a debate for me.
Okay.
I would take
We'll
Snyder.
put that in the maybe. So we're at 5.
I'll take Snyder. I think Jenkins is kind of I think he loses his grounding, I'll say sometimes. Sometimes Memphis culturally gets out of whack and he starts screaming and losing his mind on the bench. And I don't like that for my coach.
Fair enough.
I'll take Snyder.
Mark Dagnall.
He's earned that, yeah.
Will Hardy we mentioned. Steve Curry mentions.
I wouldn't take Hardy.
8. Mike Brown.
I would take Mike Brown.
Snyder.
Oh,
There you go. There it is.
I don't
It's close.
know.
I
I'm
wouldn't
taking
mind if
Mike
you took
Brown.
I think Snyder's a legitimate offensive genius.
Yeah.
So, I
think
mean,
Mike
I
Brown
think he
does
doesn't get enough credit because obviously Rudy Gobert is the number one defense by himself. But do we remember when Utah with Rudy Gobert, you know who had the highest offensive rating in NBA history until 2022?
I think it was them.
It was Rudy Gobert. like individual offensive rating until 2022, Rudy Gobert had the best individual offensive rating in NBA history. Now, we all agree that he is not a number one offensive player of all time. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
So
Well, the
I just
reason
think,
why. You know why.
they know, like, they totally maximize the spread pick and roll and Donovan Mitchell's development with that spacing. Like, I legitimately, the fact that Rudy Gobert can be a number one offensive player of all time for a rating at some point, I think shows how much of an offensive genius that he was. And there were huge limitations on that Utah roster that didn't allow them to make the conference finals because of how far they had to lean into that. But I think very few coaches in the NBA could have done that.
That's true, but I think because of the simple fact, Rudy Gobert is a one-man defense in those years. Utah was able to put their 4 best offensive players on the floor almost at all times, and Gobert still made a top 10 defense.
Who was the second offensive all-star, though, on those teams?
They didn't have one. They just had a great cast.
I know.
It was Donovan Mitchell
Mike
and
Brown
Mike
just
Conley.
had the best offensive rating ever.
Before we get
I
to
know.
Mike Brown, on those teams, you had Mitchell, Connolly, Bogdanovich,
yep.
and then one of
O'Neal.
O'Neal, Ingles, or Clarkson. So they just threw as many good offensive players as they could in all those.
Let me just make the point, though. It was with Rudy Gobert who had the best individual offensive rating of all time. And I love Rudy, and we're going to talk about his extension soon. But I don't know. I think we're downplaying how much greatness that takes because it's taken Minnesota 3 years to figure out how to be a good offense with Gobert, and they still haven't fully figured it out yet. So
that speaks on Chris Finch, bum ass.
No, it doesn't.
Anyways, back to his coaching rankings before I can move on.
He made
The last name that I had,
Rudy work, and they said it wouldn't work. So
the last name that I had above Snyder was Tom Thibodeau.
That's fair.
It's fair. It's fair.
They're flipped. Like he's one of the best defensive minds in basketball.
Yeah, I would still take Snyder, but
I would take he's just a maximizer of talent. Like whatever he has,
sort of.
Like you kind of like defensively, you know what you're gonna get from Tibbs.
Yeah,
you know he's gonna play. He has his flaws for sure, but whatever he rolls out there, they play hard, and you'll get the best efforts out of them. You know, and defensively they'll be there no matter who's out there. I think offense is not his best strong suit. I think that's probably his one knock. Like offense is not his thing. But shit, he goes way back to 08, 07, like when he was the reason for that Celtics team that won the title, being an elite defense. You know, them Bulls.
He was the assistant coach that year.
Yeah, but he was
credit to him that year. But like,
he was the nucleus. Like he was the guy putting up defensive schemes for them. Like the Chicago Bulls defensive schemes was him. Minnesota was probably like his one. While you had the tower.
We were so bad on defense.
Yeah, you had Andrew Wiggins and Cat. You know, I get it. You know, and Jeff T. I don't know why you guys.
It was not a defensively built roster, and they kind of wanted Jimmy to kind of glue it all together. I remember that, but it was. I think with Tibbs was always kind of been my okay. Like I would not be mad if you took Tibbs over Snyder. I understand that. He's just one of those guys. It's like, dude, make an adjustment. You know, it just. I think Snyder just has like more of a creative tick to the way he coaches, and I just kind of prefer that in the year 2024. So like, I think Tibbs, he's one of those. If you're his guy, he's your favorite coach ever. If he likes you, you're gonna love him. If you don't like him, you probably hate him to the actual bone. So it's just it's like the polarizing factor for. I think Snyder has more of a middle grounding to him, which is why I would prefer him.
That's fair enough.
That's my.
Now we're going to talk about the last contract extension. I'm going to tip it off to you, James.
So I made the case for Snyder right at 10. Boom.
Well, if we're including guys like Carlisle and Popovich, that put him at 12.
I put him at 12. Okay,
he's still a good coach. There's such.
Let's not count those two then. Okay, he's 10.
There's such a good amount of head coaches in the NBA today. You may not be a top 10 coach, but you're still recognized as a really good one. And I think Snyder is a great example of that. So Rudy Gobert got a 3-year extension for $110 million, which reports indicate did cut off the $47 million player option at this current deal. James, how do you feel about Gobert getting extended long-term? Do you think Minnesota should have done this at this point in time? Did they do it too early?
I love it. I love this extension so much, mainly because, one, I've always been a Rudy Gobert truther, even since the Utah days. So it's pretty good that it's pretty funny that my fan base was the one selected to go through the Rudy pain because I could defend him until we did something. But I think with Rudy Gobert, that's the big kicker right there. The $47 million That's down to like 33 this year. And there's a lot of financial questions in Minnesota. And theoretically, this is going to make it a lot easier to bring back Naz Reid and or Julius Randle, plus maybe Nickeil Alexander-Walker. If this doesn't happen, at most you'd be lucky to keep one of those guys. But now with this extension, I don't remember the weeds of the numbers, but now it feels feasible. If you want to find a way to keep two, you possibly can. And I think that's a great thing about Rudy. I personally think his game is going to age well because it isn't like his game is completely reliant on how fast and explosive and twitchy he is. It's never been his game. It's been incredible length. It's been incredible physicality, and he has one of the best physical builds. He takes excellent care of his body. So I think he's going to age well. Yep, he's going to age well over the next 3 years. So he's going to be very good for the next few years. And you're doing it while likely keeping some of the core guys that might have been harder to keep if you didn't extend him. And it also kind of eliminates the center question in the near future. Now you know who your center is in Minnesota. So I loved it. I thought it was really good.
You know, Rudy Gobert reminds me of Marcus Camby. And for the guys who don't know ball, if you don't know who Marcus Camby is, I would
that can pick a 96.
Yeah, I would love for you to go watch him. He was one of the best defensive bigs in his time. Was a really great defender, and he aged really well. And that's why I bring up this comparison, because I agree with you, James. I think Rudy is going to age well. I don't think he's going to lose any defensive prowess at like 33 or 32. No, because he doesn't rely on his athleticism. He's an athletic dude, sneaky too. It's not like he doesn't have any athleticism. Like he can move. He can be on his feet. But he's long. He knows how to position himself well. You know, his defensive IQ is there. And I bring up Marcus Camby because Marcus Camby was a great defender probably for 20 years, legitimately 15 to 20 years. And I think Rudy can be that. The problem with Rudy, though, has always and forever will be his offense. Like he's just he drops the ball, he gets a little too fidgety, he doesn't really have a hook shot, has no post game. But you know,
he's got a game 7 fadeaway shot.
Yeah, he's probably like just as bad offensively as Ben Wallace. And you know, that's saying something. But I do think for Rudy Gobert, this is a good extension because, like you mentioned, you get to keep your core guys. I mean, Minnesota is not probably going to be in the market to get anybody high major in free agency or make those big splashy trades for a big time superstar. So what do? What's the next move? You try to maintain your core guys that keep you competitive. Naz Reid is still really young. He's about 24, 25 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So you keep developing him as a player. You just picked up Rob Dillingham, which you're expecting big things from. So eventually that'll come along. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a really good role player for you. He's also still really young. You want to try to keep him. And then Julius Randle, you want to either keep him to trade him or keep him to keep him, but you want to have the money and the flexibility to kind of maintain and keep this core group of guys so you can maintain and keep the competitiveness for Ant Edwards, developing years. You don't want to be ass and then he ends up pulling an AD and wanting to leave, because you couldn't maintain or keep competitiveness throughout the years. No, you want to show some effort. And, sometimes some of these superstar players want to just see effort from their franchise. Like they want to see that you believe in them and you want to compete around them. And I think Minnesota's doing that. So shout out to this extension because I think it's a really good one. And I like it.
It is, because this is, to me, one of the most team-friendly deals that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, where it's only 18% of the league tax. For Minnesota, he's the second most important player. He's going to be really the backbone of their elite defense the next 4 years. So you lock him down, it kind of allows them to allocate a little bit more salary than what they would have had they have either win an extra year and then given him a bigger deal. But I just think giving Gobert this contract to his age 35 season is like the right timeline to where the team's getting the absolute best value. And then for Gobert as well, he's locking up the money long term. So I have really no qualms at all with this deal.
Is he the most important player on the team? Question. No. Just asking.
In the regular season, he was last year.
Maybe not the best. Sometimes you don't have to be the best to be the most important. But this team prides on defense.
No.
Just ask him.
Well, I'll say this. Last year in the regular season, he was. Because Edwards didn't really, put it all together until, I would say, honestly, in some ways, I don't want to sound horrible, but, the moment he really broke out was when Cat got hurt.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's when it was okay, he's here. And obviously, Ant at the end of the year like broke his hand from that Utah dunk, and then like he couldn't make a shot for a week, and it like nuked his stats. But like he, Rudy last year was. If he's the most important player this year, though, I think we'll be having some negative conversations about Edwards. So there's that.
Yo, John, you said no too quick. Why you said like, yo, who's the most important player for the Kevin Durant Warriors? Steph. Who's the best?
KD.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
That because I don't look at it from a regular season lens. I look at it from a 7-game series.
Right. I get that.
Rudy Gobert is like a 1B to me, but
what?
Let me reword that. When you're talking about impact,
even an option.
when you're talking about impact, he's not an option offensively per se. He is like clearly one of your 2 most important players, and you can make the case in a certain series he'll be more important than Ant-Man. But with what Ant-Man brings late in games, a lot of the time Rudy Gobert can't catch a pass in traffic.
Yeah,
I'm sorry if you're a
that'll never happen, unfortunately.
If you're a liability, I wouldn't even say a liability, but if you're a clear-cut negative on one side of the ball, I have a hard time saying you're the best player on the team when your true best player is still one of the best players at his respective position.
There we go. Utah, who was the best player on the team? Donovan Mitchell or Rudy?
Rudy Gobert.
You can go either way. I would say Rudy Gobert.
Mitchell was a liability on defense. Massively.
Whoa. This is where we lie. We shouldn't lie here.
I don't think.
No, he was a bad defender in Utah. He was. He was
no.
very bad. Matter of fact, he was disgraceful at times. He was bad.
We have to stop lying, James. Lying is a sin. No, I'm
not lying. That's not a lie.
Lying is a sin, and we need to stop lying. He wasn't bad. The team was bad.
It was.
The team was bad.
In the beginning. In the
playoffs, he had moments.
In the beginning of his career, he was bad, or he wasn't as bad early in his career.
Great.
Late in his career, I don't know if it was because he was frustrated with the situation that was going on there. I don't know what it was. The last 2 years there, it was like, Mitchell, what the F are you doing on defense?
Remember the year before, the last year, he messed up his ankle. So in the playoffs, he was playing with a bad ankle the whole time.
Yeah. Like I look at that Knicks series where Brunson was saucing him. He wasn't 100% healthy in that series, and he had such a large low on the offensive side. You could say he was liability defensively then, but generally, I just think he was a below-average guard defender in the regular season. So I think Gobert is the better player on those Utah teams, but in the playoffs, it was Donovan Mitchell quite clearly.
Mitchell also wasn't realized yet either early in his career.
That's a better example to me of like separating the regular season playoffs because of how great Mitchell was able to ramp up his game in those 7-game matchups.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now we're going to talk about something. It's kind of going to extend off our Jalen Johnson point before. I want to start off our topical segment, highlighting a very important and kind of endearing.
Wait. Before we do that, quick reaction to Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy, 4 years, 112. I like the contract, and I think Ingram is gone pretty soon.
Me too.
I agree. I think that's kind of the setting of goodbye, Brandon Ingram. Even though he's playing OD right now.
Yeah, that was a crazy game winner he had.
The game winner, yeah.
They're good. They're going to need a long-term solution at the 5. I think Brandon Ingram's going to be the key to that. Or maybe they let him walk for nothing. That would be stupid. But Brandon Ingram, if you keep hooping like this, brother, you're going to get traded.
That goes up on that expiring deal.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna if he moves, if he keeps playing like this, somebody's going to give him that money. So somebody. So at this point, he's just like, whenever I could get my money, I'm gonna get my money, So, but Trey Murphy is definitely going to be the starter next year, probably. I do think Brandon Ingram is better. I don't know if Trey Murphy can get to that level of offense that Brandon Ingram can get to, but he's a solid player. Like Trey Murphy's a tricky one because, like, I think he's a really great shooter. I think his ball handling is a little bit suspect. I think he has no playmaking art to his game right now. Yeah. I think the defense is more. You look like you can play defense as opposed to actually are a really good defender. Yeah, you look like it. Like when you stand there and you get in position, brother, you look scary. But then when it's actually time to break you down, brother, you can't even do what you're saying you're doing. So I think that is the 4-year 112 is we believe in his potential. I think his potential is really good. How good can it be? I'm thinking ceiling Chris Middleton, but reality probably
Middleton's rich.
Well, that's what I said. Ceiling, and I got reality is probably
MPJ,
a little better. MPJ with defense. There we go.
A slightly better defensive version. I can kind of get behind that. With Murphy, I just think it was about building around Zion. This is the exact skill set that you need to maximize your franchise player. And I think with him being 24 years old, New Orleans thinks he can get slightly better as a shot creator. And we saw a little bit of that, but he did miss the start of last year. And he was banged up at the beginning with what I believe was an knee injury. I'll have to fact check myself there. So I like the deal. 33 million is fine to me. But if they don't trade Brandon Ingram, I don't know how Trey Murphy is going to fit into this picture. But now we're going to talk about a team that I think has really gotten slept on a little bit after the offseason moves that they made. And it's an endearing team to me because I think Trae Young's one of the most disrespected players in the NBA. But right now, when I look at the Atlanta Hawks, it's clear to me. The Hawks are finally starting to build a good, concise supporting cast around Trae Young. Through the first 2 games, they've played 2 of the worst teams in the NBA, specifically the Nets, also the Hornets, or semi.
Don't hate on the Hornets, man. No, I'm not doing that right now. LaMelo Ball is on fire.
I'm with you. I'm not
10 turnovers yesterday.
10 turnovers, but man, those threes had so much aura.
He fouled out the game too, I'm pretty sure.
Fuck you, foul out to have 10 turnovers in the same game.
Impressive.
That's ridiculous.
Good for him.
Yeah, that's an insane thing to do.
Back to the Hawks.
Hey, he's trying.
The Hawks have finally figured out how to build around Trae Young. When they moved DeJounte Murray in the offseason, a lot of us believed they were kind of getting worse and they're starting to rebuild. But I think they're going to be a better team this year for 3 main reasons. Number one of the 2 players they got in the DeJounte Murray deal, Dyson Daniels, is playing out of his mind through 2 games. We already know he's a really good defender, but he's starting to make open shots, and I think that's what makes him a perfect fit off of Trae Young. Trae's going to generate a lot of open looks, and a lot of corner threes that Dyson wasn't quite getting in New Orleans. Dyson also wasn't getting the playing time to really get going. But in the first 2 games, we've seen him get going as a driver off closeouts. He used step through spins to really get going in the paint, and he was finishing really well. He had one of the toughest finishes I've seen all of this season. Secondly, I really like the depth that they've gotten on the wings. But the DeAndre Hunter starting, it allows Zachary Russell to slowly get a flow and kind of a rhythm in those 10 to 15 minutes a game. But it's not forcing Zachary Russell to have too large of a role right now to where I think by the end of this year, Zach will kind of get to that, sub-starter level, but he's not being thrust into the lineup too early. And I think long-term, he'll be the one replacing DeAndre in that spot. But then lastly, Onyeka Okongwu. Finally starting to show that growth that we've been waiting for a couple of years. He was a 6th overall pick in 2020, but he never really had the keys to the starting job handed to him, Clint Capella. In their most recent game, 11 of 12 from the field, 3 blocks, 28 points. He's finally starting to get more minutes, and I think he'll be the starter man this year. I look at Onyeka, Zachary Russell, DeAndre Hunter having a little bit less minutes, but he's still playing quite well, and Dyson Daniels. It feels like the Hawks are putting together a group of good wing defenders, decent enough shooters, and just athletes with their front court starting to get a little bit of momentum and growth from Onyeka. So all things considered, I think this is a sneaky playing team and just a group that makes a lot of sense. They're going to be a decent defense for the first time in years. And I think for that, Trae Young to stick around long term.
You know the dumbest thing you could do in October?
Overreact?
Take victory laps, yes. So not to toot my own horn here, but I did say Atlanta was better off trading DeJounte Murray, and I thought the Hawks were making the playoffs this year. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with the playoff conversation. That's way too early. But I do agree with you. I think with Trae Young, a heliocentric Trae Young offense makes a lot more sense than what you're doing with him and DeJounte Murray, especially because DeJounte isn't like a superstar level creator. So I really love – I kind of compare it to what the Houston Rockets did with Harden in the mid-2010s, where they just kind of put these off-ball, lengthy 3-and-D wings, and then they just had lob threat bigs, whether it was Capella or Howard. Now for Atlanta, it's Okongwu and Capella. And how many alley-oops has Okongwu caught in the last 2 games?
A lot.
I mean, between Johnson and Trae Young setting him up, it's been unreal. And you mentioned Dyson Daniels. I think the fact that these like off-ball wings are playing so well is going to allow Zachary Russell to just kind of blend in. And I honestly, the stats don't show it yet. He has 12 points on 13 shots over 2 games, but he looks like an NBA player when I watch him. And I think that's the most important thing. He's making the right decisions. He looks physically ready, all those things. So I think over time he's going to just integrate himself in.
Yeah.
And I think Trae Young is a walking top 10 offense by himself with the right pieces. And if the Hawks are a near league average defense, I mean, what does that equal? 45 wins? So that's why I had the Hawks making the playoffs early in the year. And my opinion over 2 games, let alone 2 games, but it hasn't like significantly changed in any direction.
Right.
Yeah,
they're good. I love how you put it. Zachary Russell integrating slowly. I think that's what I was trying to get at before.
Nuts. That was a crazy thing to say, John.
How?
But I would say, listen,
I got it.
they're just saying we're just gonna give Trey Young the highest usage in NBA history, and we're just gonna flow with that. And listen, it works. I mean, Trey Young is one of the best passers in the game. He's one of the best playmakers in the game, and this offense. Trey Young, like how we talk about Rudy Gobert, Trey Young is a walking top 10 offense. Like this guy can generate points like the best, not like that fraud in Indiana, but this guy can really generate some legit points. Like he can, it's not just jumping up in the air, throwing these weak ass pass. No, this guy is a legit break you down and can, Trey Young did a behind the back pass while bringing in like 2 defenders in front of him and 1 behind and still was able to do it. Dyson fucking missed it. That's why it wasn't a highlight. I'm sick of him for that. But at the same time, Trey Young, Atlanta Dogs. I'm kind of feeling what you're feeling, John. I'm shifting over to another team, a little different team. They kind of play near Detroit, around Indiana. They're one of those teams around Chicago too. I'm screaming Cleveland Cavaliers propaganda. I'm screaming it, and I'm screaming it because what have we been saying about the Cleveland Cavaliers for the last 2 years? This team, Donovan Mitchell is a dog. Nobody will ever, people will dispute that. Nobody who knows ball would ever dispute that. Donovan Mitchell is a dog. Jared Allen is a great center. Darius Garland has ways to go, but we all like his trajectory, and he played good last game. So I give him a pat on the back. But what has been this team's key to success? What has been this team's prime reason for why they'll reach the mountaintops or get close? It's that big man at the power forward position. Evan fucking Mobley. This guy screamed potential coming out of college. This guy screamed they were comparing him to AD. I'm not saying he's going to be AD. Let me start by saying that. But they were comparing him to Anthony Davis. I mean, this guy's defensive prowess is ridiculous. I actually thought it was disrespectful that people would say they would take Wemby defensively over Evan Mobley. I mean, Evan Mobley is damn near a perfect defender. Like he's one of the 5 best defenders in the world. And then offensively, that was been his thing that needs to catch up. And I think he's starting to figure it out. And I love what Kenny Atkinson has been doing. They're starting to create more one-on-one looks for Evan Mobley, letting him kind of what John is hoping for in Jalen Suggs to kind of get more opportunities. I think Evan Mobley's starting to get that in these last 2 games. Like we're going to mention, not crazy competition, nothing against Toronto. And I'm blanking.
He was locking down Scottie Barnes.
And he was killing him. He was killing him and locking him up.
Really bad.
That's a matchup. You a guy who's in your draft class. It feel a little different. Like you're a guy that's in the draft class. You got paid. I got paid. Let's lock in right here. And Evan Mobley said, "I'm taking you to school." But Evan Mobley just looks a lot different. Of course, it's only been 2 games. But he's definitely looked like somebody who Kenny Atkinson really loves. And Kenny Atkinson going far as Brooklyn ultimately changed Brook Lopez's game, and I think that bringing him in was kind of the calling card that they needed to kind of elevate Evan Mobley because he's the key to their success. They're strapped up money-wise. They kind of have their core groups. They didn't do too much in this offseason. They re-signed Donovan Mitchell. That was the big thing they needed to do. They brought back Isaac Okoro. But this guy, Evan Mobley, was the guy who they've been circling. We need him to get to that level. We need him. When people were calling Chet White Garnett, we need people to call Evan Mobley dark-skinned AD. That's the vibe they're trying to get at right now because I think Evan Mobley and Chet are kind of going to be glued together in the same trajectory, and I love Evan Mobley's game. So I think Cleveland, to be in that, we look at Boston, they're in a tier of their own. We look at that next tier is probably New York, Milwaukee, Philly, and then that tier below, it's probably the Cavs and, Orlando, whoever else you want to throw in there. For the Cavs to get into that next tier up with the New Yorks, with Milwaukee, with Philly, it has to be because of Evan Mobley.
Absolutely. He's looked so comfortable on the offensive side of the ball. He's taken it coast to coast in transition. He had 1 possession with Boucher.
He's fucking 7-1. Like, yeah, dude, what do you come on?
Like, the handle is there, the athleticism is there, and so is the quickness, where he's hitting Chris Boucher with a wicked spin off the dribble, and he just has an extra gear, which I don't think has been fully tapped into because Cleveland's been so guard-oriented in the past. But in order for them to take that next step, like you're talking about, into that conference finals trajectory, Evan Mobley needs to be the one who's initiating and generating open looks, or Donovan Mitchell to take a backseat role in some regular season games. And you don't have to rely on him to give you 28 a night on really good efficiency. And the same goes for Garland. You want Garland to be that connective number 3, realistically. If Garland's the second best player on this Cavalier team, they're not a contender. if he becomes your third best player, or even your fourth, of Jared Allen, who I think is every bit as good, now you look at a complete Cleveland group. They've got even a deep bench at times too. Like a Ty Jerome playing quite well the second half of that game versus the Raptors. I just think there's a level of upside with this Cleveland team which hasn't been unlocked. But when they hired Kenny Atkinson this offseason, he was going to be the right type of personality to kind of open up that personality and that upside that Mobley has. So it's starting to kind of come together for them. I just want to see him more consistently take over these games on the offensive side of the ball. And I've got a couple of these clips here offensively.
Let's do it.
It's been truly a revelation watching, if I can get it on the screen.
I told you about Evan Mobley. Never forget that, John.
What's up?
I told you about Evan Mobley. Never forget that.
I also made a video in 2021 saying Evan Mobley would be the greatest gift to Cleveland since LeBron James. That's 2021. That's before as a part of pick a side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I've been to about him since 2019, brother. You're late.
Okay. Who's the next Steph Curry with the 40-inch vertical, though? That's Reed Shepherd, so it's okay.
Where's the clip, John?
Oh, I'm waiting for James.
Yeah, John, we're waiting for you, John. You're wasting our time.
I'm waiting for you to talk. There's no time there.
Hurry up already.
Nearly got copyright strikes right there at the audio.
Those jerseys is fire by Toronto, by the way.
They are.
Yeah.
Hey, come here. 7-1. Just throw it up. Backboard. Yep. Is that Davion Mitchell?
Yeah.
Davion Mitchell in 2024, man.
Why did the Kings draft him? Oh, my God. That's
I thought he could shoot.
Hey, oh, my goodness. Oh, he missed.
He got fouled.
Sure.
That was the coolest looking embarrassing layup I've ever seen.
There's definitely
that was a Gobert layup.
He's got to do some drills.
You know, he has to, when he spinned, he should have dunked it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dunk.
I think the only thing that's kind of beyond just the aggression, the mindset, he's not the most coordinated player with his hands. Like his footwork is there, and so is like the length and stuff. But there's times where he's got to finish at like a certain angle of touch that I think he definitely can expand. That's more of a training thing, but every single physical tool is there. Yep. And I think part of it's just a mindset thing. And I genuinely believe this is the year where we start to see him jump from 16, 15 points to 18. And the assists, we'll get more of them as well, just by being an initiator who's attracting more attention for cutters.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to what both of you guys said. I think there's a lot of reasons to be hugely optimistic for Cleveland. One, Garland hopefully doesn't have another jaw injury where he can't really eat real food for a month. I think that really screwed up his momentum last year. I don't even think that's disputable. That was obvious. But then Evan Mobley, honestly, I think the first signs of him maybe breaking out was against Boston in the playoffs late in that series. Because I'm not sure if you guys, I think it was the last game or second to last game. He was just taking over offensively when they had him play at the 5. And he had the ball in his hands, dribble penetration. He was hitting jump shots. He was just facilitating. And it was like, this is the idea of the guy who some people thought should have been the number 1 overall pick, even over Cade Cunningham that year. And he just has so much talent. And he's one of those, he just comes off as a very, like, if you're not going to demand this of me, I won't do it because I just want to fit in and be a good sport. He has that kind of vibe to him, kind of not a beta, but like a very much a reserved personality. So like, I think that's like, if he's being encouraged to be a guy, I think that's going to be better for him. Sort of like Kawhi in a way, in that way too. Like Kawhi kind of had to encourage him to be that guy before he became that guy. So if Mobley can be one of those guys who could just be on ball and, you know, you mentioned like that weird layup at the end. Even when he was young, he kind of did this weird thing where it felt like his lower body and upper body were disconnected. Like it's like if you had like 2 different remote controls and like one operates the legs and one operates the arms. Like that's what it always felt like. Like he'll do the coolest thing with his footwork and then his upper body just completely screws it up. His touch has always been good, but just getting rid of that rigidity with the top of his body was always been a very big thing for him. So if he can just kind of put it all together and utilize that touch, utilize that mobility, I think Cleveland is definitely – I like Cleveland more than the Milwaukees of the world, for example. I really like Cleveland this year. So they're definitely a potential home team hosting a playoff series.
Bum.
I mean, he was doing that every single possession Scottie was switched on to him.
This guy, look at that guy. They told me he was better than Cade. 20 spots, bro.
2 years, dude. We're 2 games in, man. We're 2 games in.
It's ridiculous.
Man,
20
respect
spots.
Scottie, man. I've been on that agenda since Florida State. Man.
I like Scottie. I think they lie about him though.
He's gonna be a monster. I don't know. Everybody went way too far on the wrong side after a down year too. So everybody's been lying everywhere.
What do you think is his ceiling? Honest, genuinely.
All NBA. Pretty easily.
That's
all
too
NBA,
easy to say.
All NBA second team, I think, at his peak.
That's too easy to say, and we have too many parameters for it now. You only have to
not really, not anymore in 2024. Any position, I think we can have a year where it's certain things. I think it is peak like top 17-ish, 15.
That's the question I want, because I feel like all he has to do is put up good numbers, be the healthiest out of a lot of guys, and then boom, he can make an All-NBA.
Exactly.
He can take on.
I think he'll be in that Sengun tier of guys we don't put in the
I think
top
he's more
15.
talented than Sengun.
Possibly. I mean, I think
Scotty's a playmaking hub
three-point
too.
shot.
We forget that. Scotty can play make, man. That
Absolutely.
can pass.
He had
he's
more
a
assists per
transition
game last
freak,
year.
and he can defend 4 positions. And I mean, he just has more versatility. And I still think he's a number 2 option as a scorer in his prime. So
I agree with that. I just think in order for Scotty to become more than just a perennial all-star, which is still like a really good thing. If Scottie Barnes is just a perennial all-star, Toronto will still take that. But in order for him to reach that All-NBA status, he's got to become a more efficient and consistent three-point shooter to where he's able to create from the perimeter more so, because he does also have that rigidity to him as well. And I think he knocked that off quite a bit last year specifically the first part of the year, where he was making 37% of his threes. And then the second half it started to slowly diminish, but the playmaking is absolutely there. And so is the versatility at his size. But I think we don't really look at Scotty as a shot creator, more so a do-it-all forward who's like a slightly worse version of Pascal Siakam. Siakam was.
I think he's going to be better than Siakam.
I disagree with that.
He can be. I don't know if he will.
I think he also has the upside to become the better player if the three-point shot comes along. This is a big year for him. Due to 2 games, he hasn't really been taking or making them.
You know what it is, John?
I don't think he's a good enough inside scorer to just be a wrecking ball of a scorer with that.
He's got an array of skills though inside.
Scotty and Pascal. Remember Pascal came out late. Like he was a 3-4 year. Yeah, he was a 3-4 year player. Yeah. Scotty definitely, the development is a lot more far than where Pascal was at this age. But Pascal was gifted with tremendous experience when he walked in, like the guys around him, and he was learning. Let me not say learning, because I don't know if but he does talk about how he learned a lot from Kawhi, and then when Kawhi left, they kind of gave him the keys to kind of be the guy. With Scotty, I think I can see a world where he's better than Pascal, but I think that's going to be around his, like Pascal at his best is what, like top 20, 25 player in the league, so I think there's nothing, I think Scotty can get around there. Like, I think that you got to think like with these guys coming in now, some of these guys that are in the league probably could get pushed back, and it's no shame to them. It's just, there's so many guys that are so talented now. It's just going to be hard to really give a key projecting. And some guys don't ever reach their peak. But I think, like, for me, Scotty is going to be a top 25 player just because of, like, he can, like you mentioned, he has the playmaking chops. He can ball handle. He can do a lot of things defensively. He can guard 1 through 5. He's a sound defender. He can do a lot of things. It's just that the shooting is going to be streaky or is it going to stick? Is his inside-outside game going to be like Pascal where he can get in there? He has the post up. Like, how fluid is it going to look? That's how it is.
He's got the, like, I know people joke around and are like, why would you ever say he's a smaller Giannis? First of all, a smaller Giannis is not a top 3 player in the world. So let's not get, I'm not saying he's as good Giannis, but just shorter. No one's saying that. But he does have that thing to him where when you get him in the open court, I'm not sure if I'll take 3 players over Scotty. And then there's also I think the jumper, like, it's had moments. Honestly, you can argue it's had more moments than Mobley, right? And I mean, there's moments where he's just hot from 3. And if he could just put that together as a league-ish, average-ish shooter, and with the way he's expanding as like a mid-post kind of second-level creator, I think that's enough for him to become a legitimate top 15 player.
I don't hate it. The more I look at Pascal's production, at his peak in 2020, 23 points a game, 7 rebounds, and 3.5 assists.
That team was fake stacked. Like, they had productive guys, like 1 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty can become a better player. I think because of the passing, just being on a higher level, I can talk myself into it. But
Passing's real.
2020 Pascal was an underrated player before the bubble in his own right. He was having an amazing season before. But I think that's the last topic we've got for today's show. If you guys want,
I didn't even get to say my take yet.
That's the last part. Let's hear it.
Come on now. Yeah, that's the last part.
We've been going for a minute. That's the only reason why I thought it might have been.
No, I was just responding. But my take is we're staying in the Eastern Conference. Get ready for Jayson Tatum, guys. I think I've always kind of laughed at that when people say that because he's always kind of come off as he wants to come off as tough, but, it doesn't kind of come out that way sometimes. He's had that thing about him, but there's a different energy, a different aura to him this year where he's coming off of a championship, but he also has a lot to prove. But he also has that I'm an NBA champion. I'm first team all NBA. He's kind of coming in with this necessary arrogance that you need into the season. And he was like, okay, I'll show you. I'll work my mind off of my jumper, get it back, get rid of that Charles Barkley golf swing, that his jumper. He's kind of transferred his powers over to Mikal Bridges in the preseason where it's the jumper doesn't look as weird anymore. It looked kind of too hitch in the playoffs last year and even in the Olympics. But now it's so butter smooth. He's shooting 11 threes a game so far this season, nailing them. And if Jayson Tatum is doing that, also he's going at the rim harder now. If you bring those two worlds together where he's just F you at the rim and
he's
also I'm shooting at your face, he's a top 3 MVP candidate. And doing that on a Boston Celtics team, I honestly think Jayson Tatum is going to have the best year of his career. And I think that the level of criticism he received over the summer was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to him. Because if he didn't get it, he's probably, I'm just making a guess, probably coming into the season a little bit, little complacent. We're NBA champions. I'm here. I've arrived. But he doesn't feel like he's earned or he's gotten that recognition, even though he thinks he deserves it, which I think is making him a little more edgy than we've ever seen. And I think that's a really exciting trend.
Absolutely. I mean, they dominated the Knicks. They blew them off.
That shit was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy. That shit was bad.
And New York spent the entire offseason putting together this group on the perimeter that would be able to stop him and Brown. But through 2 games, it's an insane sample size. It's very small. Tatum's averaging 31 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 50% from 3, 75% on 2s. You can't sustain that, but I think it's kind of a small example of what's to come if he is continuing to play with his level of intensity, because the shots never been an issue in the regular season. Last year, he made 38% of his threes. It was just an issue in the playoffs where fatigue starts to set in, and Tatum's being asked to do more as a playmaker and open up the game for his teammates, where he was making 30% of his threes the last 2 years. But right now, it looks like Tatum's more confident than ever before, and he's got more to prove because he's hearing the talks of, hey, is this just a split committee between him and Brown running this team? No, I think he's proving why he's clearly the franchise player and the 1A in Boston. And I don't even look at it as a 1A, 1B. Tatum to me is an established number 1. And right now we're seeing it.
Mm-hmm. You got anything to say, Riv?
Nah.
No.
Dead silence is so funny. Yeah. Jayson Tatum. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, Boston, I hate him, so I don't want to talk about him.
Me too.
Fair.
But with all that being said, I'll wrap up the second episode of Objectively Biased.
Wait. Fuck. This is what I meant to say. John, now that we're here. I watched it. Yeah. That's
Riv's remote died. Glad he watched.
Yeah. You said a lot of shit on there. And you know what? You lied about some of it. And
I lied about.
First of all, let me start by saying this. The reason why I was laying on the floor during the game is because I was exhausted and I was trying to get energy so I can go get this bucket. That's
We're still talking about this.
That's why I was sitting on the floor. And number 2, John, I don't want to be on your team anymore. I actually petitioned to be a captain so I can pick my team and stomp your team. So now I took it personal, and I'm on my Jayson Tatum shit this summer. I took what you said. I didn't like the way you criticized my character as a teammate. So now I'm going to make my own team, and we're going to win it all.
I'm with it, but I will say this. I wasn't criticizing your character. I was questioning your leadership.
As a man, you criticized my character.
Because I heard you downplaying your teammates and before the championship talking down on your team, saying we're not as good as you. And I think as a leader, you are not confident enough in your group. So I said,
I wasn't.
If I'm drafting you on my team, you have to be a team first player. I'm going to find that out, I guess, in the coming season.
Well, it's a good thing I wasn't a captain. So, yeah, I wasn't confident in that group at all.
Yeah.
Well, guys, you know what? I personally invite either of you, whatever state I'm in, Minnesota, Arizona. I personally invite you guys to one of those states, and we'll have to hoop sometime.
I'll come to Arizona. I hope.
I'm down.
Arizona, I heard it's lit. I heard it's lit out there.
Yeah, Arizona's cool.
But with all that being said, I'll wrap up episode number 2 of Objectively Biased. I had a great time today, and with all that being said, we'll see you next time.